Hi, I'm Susan Bĺàin. I'm here with Teresa Whitmore. And Teresa is a local and international realtor. She's been an entrepreneur for about 28 years, so this is going to be a great conversation. She was a city councilor. She's been a lifelong volunteer. Just to give you an idea, she's been president of the United Way, president of the Rotary Club of Orleans, president of UNIFAM. So I've always been super impressed with your volunteerism. It's very inspiring. But I want to learn a little bit more about Teresa and her backstory. So it's always interesting for me why and how people get to where they are and what paths have led them to where they are. So I've known Teresa for a while, but I actually learned a few new things about her when we were working on this video and a bit of her backstory. You come from a big family.
I do.
A family of 8 children plus your parents, so there was 10 of you all the time.
I was number 2.
Well, you're 2 in the pecking order.
Yes, I was.
And your parents were very involved with the community.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that.
They were very, very involved, actually. My mother won an award 2 years from the Chamber for being the Citizen of the Year for all of the volunteer work that she did in the community. And my father was the president of the Shrine Club. I actually never really knew what my father did with the Shrine Club because it's really a secret organization.
Yes.
You know, I just know that they raise money for children's hospitals. But when he died, many, many people came to me and they said, like, your father did this for me, or your father did that for me, or your father helped my family this way or that way. It was amazing because we never talked about it. We never talked about it at the table. I just knew that they were very busy in the community. They were very busy doing things, as well as having 8 kids and full-time jobs.
And your mother would at times bring strangers home for dinner.
Yeah.
Let's
clarify that.
Someone who she saw struggling,
yes,
right, on the way home from
my
work.
mother was a lender with Scotiabank for her entire career, and she walked everywhere. And she would walk home from work or walk to work. But typically when she was walking home from work, there was a hotel that sat on the corner in my hometown of Bancroft. And typically there would be somebody, some poor soul, sitting on the wall, you know, having a cigarette or something.
Oh, bless her heart.
And she'd stop by and say, you know, when's the last time you ate? Have you had a meal? Come home for dinner. So she would come home, and it was typical for us. It's just like, move over. When you have a table of 10,
Mom brought somebody
11
home
doesn't
again.
matter. You know, we were like the apostles. You know, it's like just bring in another chair, bring out another plate, because there was always plenty of food, because there was 10 of us to feed already. So, you know, that's my whole culture.
Yeah, and you know, many of us we do what we learn.
It's true.
And so you saw your parents constantly involved in the community, constantly helping. You know, you adopted a real sense of compassion at an early age, seeing this, and have done countless of volunteering over the years, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But one of my favorite stories that I read in doing some research about Teresa was the time that you got a call from the Red Cross. There were immigrants, refugees that were coming in from Kosovo, a plane load. And you got a call, and there were a ton of volunteers that night that stepped up and went to the airport, and you helped out. There was a lot of things that you did to welcome them and give them. And then years later, you bumped into one of the men at a home show.
Here in Ottawa
at a home show, and he was trying to figure out where he knew you from, and then it both dawned on you.
Well, it didn't dawn on me because I didn't recognize him, because you can appreciate a 747 touches down on the tarmac in Trenton, and you have hundreds of people getting off the plane, and they're passing by you quickly. But he kept saying to me, "I know you. I've seen you
at the home show."
Yeah, I know you from somewhere.
Where do I remember you from?
Where do I know you from?
What I found interesting was why you stuck out to him, because there were hundreds of an army of volunteers that night that came out and greeted those refugees. And above all the volunteers, you stood out because you gave them a hug and shook their hand without gloves.
Without gloves. It's true.
And he remembered you.
And that's why he remembered me, because he said of all the people, he said, they all talked about that after, because they said there was dozens and dozens of volunteers on the tarmac. And he said, you're passing people, and you're so grateful to be in Canada. You're so grateful to the Canadian Forces for bringing the plane in and removing them out of a bad situation into a better situation, into a safe environment in Canada. And when he saw me, when he came to my house, because he was selling windows and I wanted to get a price on my windows, and he said, we've been talking about this with my family. And he says, I know how I know you. I said, how do you know me? He said, you were the only volunteer that didn't wear gloves. I said, nope, I didn't. I said, I figured that I was there to greet people, and I wasn't going to greet people who had just lost everything and had nothing but the clothes on their back with a gloved hand. I figured if God wanted me to get sick, I'd get sick, and I didn't get sick.
That's the Mama T factor. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. So we're here with Teresa Whitmore. She's a local and international realtor. We're learning a little bit about her. I'm Susan Bĺàin. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to do a few vignettes, and we hope you stay tuned.
Thank you.